The night smelled like rain that would never fall. Wind worked the dust in slow spirals. The saloon lamps burned low, gold against the kind of sky that keeps its secrets. She stood in the doorway, hand on the frame, watching the street like it had done her wrong. Her name was Maeve Calder. Her dress was plain. Her eyes were not. They held storms and a promise of firelight. A man stepped from shadow. Tall, broad across the shoulders, hat brim wet with dew. He moved like a horse that knows the way home and does not rush. Rowan Creed, stranger to this town, the kind of man whose silence is heavier than talk, the kind you do not trust and somehow cannot stop looking at. They saw each other as the wind shifted. Dust slid over his boots. Strand by strand, her hair pulled free and danced at her jaw. He tipped his hat, a small arc, respectful. She did not nod back. What she felt was not respect. It was heat, dark and low, and she hated it for arriving first. Inside, a piano spoke with tired keys. Laughter cut short when Rowan crossed the floor. He ordered nothing. He set his gloves on the bar and stood with his back to the room. Maeve stepped behind the counter and set a glass down anyway. He did not touch it. "You from north of here?" he asked. "South," she said. He studied her like a map he could not fold right. His gaze held steady and quiet. She looked away first and felt weak for it. She felt angry for feeling weak. The town was not kind to a woman who showed softness. The town had taught her to keep her hands busy and her heart holed up. "You looking for someone, Mr. Creed?" she asked. "Maybe," he said. "Maybe someone is looking for me." The door scraped again. 3 men pushed in on a wave of cold grit, coats stiff, eyes knife-hard. The lead wore a tin star that had not been polished in months. Sheriff Kellen Rye. The badge looked heavy on him, like it knew stories he could not wash off. "Evening, Maeve," he said. "All honey and gravel." "Evening, Sheriff." His gaze slid past her to Rowan. It stayed there, still as a loaded gun. "You ride alone, Mr. Creed?" the sheriff asked. Rowan did not turn. "I ride quiet," he said. "Quiet is easy when a man has ghosts to keep him company," the sheriff said. Maeve felt the tension notch up like a rifle sight. She did not want trouble. Trouble still came to the thirsty. It came to those with a past and to those who stood near them. "Sheriff," she said, gentle, "let him finish his—" She looked at the untouched glass. Air. Kellen smiled at her, then let the smile die. He flicked dust from the star. "That yours?" he asked, tipping his chin at the glass. "It is, if he wants it." What he did not know was that Maeve had a reason to fear badges. Years ago, a badge had looked away while a man she loved bled into the dirt. She had stood by, small and shaking, and learned that justice has a price tag. Since then she kept her coin close and her faith closer. Both were running thin. The sheriff turned to Rowan. "Word is you passed through Dry Needle. Word is the bank there woke up light. Word is," Rowan said, "a wind talks louder than a man." Kellen's hand settled near his holster. Not on it, near. The room held its breath. Through the window, horses stamped at the post. The piano fell quiet like it knew better. Maeve stepped between them before the moment could harden. She set her palm flat on the wood of the bar. She felt the old scars there from bottles dropped and knives dragged. Her voice was calm. If there is business, take it outside. The floor here is tired of blood. Rowan's eyes touched hers. For a second she felt seen, not as a pretty face or a sweet mouth or a pair of hands to scrub a floor. Seen as a person who keeps going because the fire inside refuses to die. The recognition struck her like soft thunder. She did not like it. She needed it all the same. Kellen's jaw flexed. He nodded once to his men. "We will be outside. Mr. Creed, you will join us when you finish your air." They left. The door whispered shut, and the room exhaled. Maeve took the glass back. She set it aside. "You should go," she said. "I just got here." "Then you should leave before you stay," she said. "This town eats men who think they can stand alone. It eats women faster." He looked at her hand. A thin white scar ran across the knuckles. He did not ask. He lifted his gaze. "Who did you lose?" he asked. "Everyone," she said. The word surprised her. It fell out and lay between them like a dropped coin. Rowan's expression shifted. Not pity. Recognition. He nodded. He reached into his coat and set a small rusted spur on the bar. He pushed it toward her. "I hold on to this to remember not to hold on to anything," he said. "I seem to be failing at it tonight." She almost smiled. Almost. The spur was old. Its edges dull from miles. A symbol of motion, tamed by time. She touched it with one finger. A strange warmth rolled through her chest, like whiskey she had not drunk. But then she whispered, low so only he could hear, "Why are they really here for you?" Rowan slid his gaze to the door and back. Someone burned a barn near Dry Needle. Someone left a name scratched on a wall. It was mine. I was 50 miles away. I have no witness but wind and a mule that would rather lie than walk. "You did not do it," she said. No. She believed him and could not explain why. It made no sense. Sense had never saved her before. The sheriff's boot heel clicked outside. A pause. A second click. The sound of a man counting choices. Rowan took his hat and set it on his head. He lifted the spur again and closed her hand around it instead. "Keep it," he said. "I do not want your past. It is not mine any more." A storm grumbled far off. No rain followed. In the silence after the thunder, Hearts spoke in a language only the body hears. Her skin prickled, his shoulders squared. Something began, and neither of them named it. Rowan moved for the door. Maeve's voice stopped him. "If you walk out there, keep to the left of the step. The board costs more blood than whiskey." He glanced back. A slow nod. "Thank you." "Do not thank me," she said. "I am mad at you for making me care." He held her eyes, and the heat rose, slow and relentless, like dawn over a red ridge. "Hate is easier," he said. "Heat does not listen." He went out first, into the night that watched like a hawk. Maeve stood still as a church pew, breath shallow, fingers around the spur. In that small metal circle she felt a rhythm that matched her own pulse. The street waited. The sheriff waited. The town held its hunger, patient as a snake. Rowan stepped left of the broken board. The door closed behind him. Maeve moved to the window and set the lamp low. She could see them now. 3 shapes against the dim, 1 man alone. She pressed the spur to her palm until it left a mark. She did not know whose side she stood on, only that a choice was coming, wrapped in dust and in heat. If this story has warmed a quiet corner of your heart, stay close. The night still has more to tell, and the wind has not run out of secrets. The gunfire never came, only voices, low, sharp, circling. Maeve stood by the window, lamp dimmed to a trembling glow. Outside, the sheriff and his men stood shoulder to shoulder, the wind lifting the edges of their coats. Rowan Creed faced them, motionless, his shadow long and lean under the crooked lamplight. She could not hear every word, but she felt them. The kind of words men used before blood made sense of things. Kellen Rye spat to the dust. "You've got a reputation that travels faster than truth, Creed. Men say you were seen near the fire. Men say you rode off before dawn." Rowan's voice carried steady. "Men say too much when they fear silence." Maeve's fingers tightened on the windowsill. She knew that tone, controlled, low, meant to keep wolves at bay. She had heard it once before, long ago, from a man who didn't live long enough to finish his sentence. One of Kellen's deputies moved closer. "Could be you hang for it, outlaw. Could be we drag you back to Dry Needle ourselves." Rowan shifted his weight, not defensive, not afraid. A man who'd been down this road before. "Then let's ride," he said. Kellen's hand hovered near his gun. "You'll come quiet?" Rowan's gaze lifted toward the saloon. For a moment, Maeve thought he looked right at her. Then he said, "I'll come my way." The silence between them cracked like dry wood. Maeve couldn't stop herself. She pushed through the door and out into the street. The men turned. The wind carried the smell of dust and danger. "That's enough," she said, voice trembling but loud enough to cut through the still air. "You drag a man from my saloon without proof, and the town will call it what it is, a hanging, not justice." Kellen's eyes burned with something between anger and pity. "Maeve, you don't know who you're defending." "Maybe not," she said, "but I know what you're becoming." The deputy stepped forward. "Sheriff?" Kellen hesitated. His jaw tightened. Then he let his hand fall from the gun. "Fine. Tomorrow, sunrise. He rides in front of me to Dry Needle. Tonight, he stays where I can find him." He turned and walked away, the others following. The echo of boots on wood faded into the dark. Maeve exhaled hard. Rowan hadn't moved. "You should have let them take me," he said quietly. "I don't take orders from men who bleed on my floor," she said, crossing her arms. "And I don't watch men get killed for the wrong reasons." He studied her a long time. "That makes you kind. That makes me tired." They stood in the still night, the air heavy and warm. Somewhere far off, a coyote called, a lonely, hollow sound that made her chest ache. She turned back toward the saloon. "You can sleep in the storeroom. Don't make me regret it." He followed her inside, hat in hand. The piano stood silent. The whiskey smell hung in the air like a memory that refused to leave. She lit a lantern and pointed to a narrow cot behind stacked crates. "There." He nodded, unbuckling his gun belt slow, careful. "You trust me that much?" "I don't trust you at all," she said. "I just trust the walls to hold." He gave a small, tired smile. Fair enough. As she turned to leave, he said her name softly. Maeve. She froze. What? Thank you. The words brushed against something she'd buried deep. She didn't answer. She just walked back to the bar, sat on the counter, and poured herself a drink. The burn hit her throat like honesty. Hours passed. Wind crept under the doors. The town went quiet, the kind of quiet that means everyone's waiting for something to break. Maeve leaned her head back, eyes half closed. Her mind wandered to things she shouldn't remember. A man's laugh, a shot in the dark, blood soaking into dirt that looked just like this. The past was a shadow she could never outwalk. Behind her, a floorboard creaked. Rowan's voice came low, careful not to startle. Can't sleep when ghosts have stories left to tell. She turned, glass in hand. You talk like a preacher. Preachers don't carry scars like mine, he said. She looked at the lines on his face, the quiet weight in his eyes. You've lost something, she said. He nodded once. Someone, years back. What was her name? Ella. Maeve's chest tightened. What happened? She believed the law would save her, he said. It didn't. For a moment, silence grew tender. Then Maeve spoke before she could stop herself. Then we're the same. Their eyes met. Two wounded souls caught in the same storm. The air between them changed, thick with something unnamed. He stepped closer. The light caught the edge of his jaw, his eyes soft but searching. She didn't move. Couldn't. His voice barely above a whisper. You should hate me. Maybe I do, she said. He reached out, slow, stopping just before touching her cheek. Then why are you shaking? Because hate had never felt so much like longing. Maeve turned away, breath trembling. Get some sleep, Rowan creed. He hesitated, then stepped back. Good night, Maeve Calder. When he lay down, she stayed at the bar, staring at the dying flame in the lantern. The light flickered, soft and gold, painting the room in warmth that didn't reach her heart. She touched the old spur still in her pocket. Its metal felt warm from her skin. Maybe it wasn't just his memory she was keeping. It was the weight of everything she wanted to forget. Outside, thunder rolled again, closer this time. The air carried the smell of wet dust. She wondered if the storm would finally break, or if, like her, it only knew how to hold everything in. If you felt that quiet pull between hate and heat, don't turn away yet. The desert night hasn't told all it knows. By morning, the storm had come and gone, leaving the world washed raw. Mud streaked the street, and the air carried that hollow stillness only found after thunder. Maeve stood by the window, watching the sunrise creep across the ridgeline like a slow forgiveness. Behind her, Rowan Creed stirred from the cot. He looked different in daylight. Less shadow, more man. The scars along his jaw caught the sun. The bruises beneath his eyes told of nights spent running, maybe from the law, maybe from something worse. You don't sleep much, she said. Never learned how, he answered, voice still rough from dreams. She poured coffee into a tin cup, set it on the bar. It's weak. He took it anyway. Weak coffee's still warm. That's what matters. For a moment, they stood there. Two people pretending the world wasn't waiting just beyond the door. Then came the sound they both expected. Boots in the mud, spurs clicking, voices too calm to be kind. The sheriff was back. Maeve's stomach tightened. She turned to Rowan. "You could still run. There's a trail behind the livery, past the creek." He shook his head. "Running makes a man guilty, even when he ain't." "And staying gets you killed," she said. He smiled, faint and resigned. "I've been close before." The door swung open. Sheriff Kellen Rye stepped in with the morning light cutting behind him. Dust framed his silhouette like judgment. "Time to ride, Creed," he said. Maeve's voice cracked the silence. "You said sunrise. It's barely come." Kellen looked at her, not unkindly. "You care too much for a man you don't know." "Maybe I just don't like bullies with badges," she said. One of the deputies laughed. The sheriff didn't. His eyes lingered on her face, then dropped to Rowan's hands. Calm, empty, no weapon drawn. "You ready?" Kellen asked. Rowan nodded. "I reckon I am." Maeve stepped closer. "You'll let him come back?" "That depends," Kellen said. "If he's what he says he is." Rowan met her eyes. "If I don't come back, you'll know I wasn't." He moved past her, the scent of leather and dust trailing in his wake. For reasons she didn't understand, it made her chest ache. He paused at the doorway, glancing once over his shoulder. "Keep the spur. It might remind you that not all lost things stay gone." Then he was gone, swallowed by the pale morning and the waiting horses. Maeve stood frozen until the last hoofbeat faded. Then she sat at the bar, staring at the place where he'd stood, the faint warmth still in the air. The day stretched long and empty. The saloon filled with regulars by noon, men who talked too loud and drank too fast. None of them noticed the woman who moved like a ghost through her own life. When evening came, so did the storm's echo, heavy clouds rolling over the horizon, dragging the light down early. Maeve closed the shutters and lit the lamps. The glass threw back her reflection, tired eyes, lips pressed tight, hair still wild from worry. The door creaked open again. Not the sheriff this time. A boy, no older than 16, dripping rain and carrying a telegram. "For you, Miss Calder," he said, voice nervous. She paid him and unfolded the paper with shaking fingers. Message from Dry Needle. Prisoner Creed cleared. Real arsonist found. Sheriff returning. Maeve's breath caught. Relief hit her too hard to feel good. She pressed the paper to her chest, whispering, "He's alive." Then the boy spoke again. "He's coming this way, ma'am. They said by sundown." Her hands trembled as she poured a drink. Whiskey sloshed over her fingers. She didn't wipe it away. She just stared at the door, heart thudding to a rhythm she didn't recognize. When it finally opened again, the last light of dusk poured through, and Rowan Creed stood there, soaked to the bone, mud on his boots, but alive. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The space between them was all heartbeat and memory. "You came back," she whispered. "Didn't have much choice," he said softly. "Seems I owed you a drink." She laughed, a small, startled sound. "You don't owe me anything." He stepped closer. "I owe you the truth." Maeve's pulse stilled. "About what?" He set his hat down on the bar, water dripping from the brim. "About who I was, before the fire, before the name Creed meant trouble." She met his eyes. "Then tell me." He hesitated, then spoke, slow, low, like the words were heavy. My real name's not Rowan Creed. It's Elias Hart. I changed it after Ella died. After the law turned her death into a story that blamed me. Maeve's breath caught. You lied to me. I did, because the truth costs more than I had left. She turned away, anger flaring. And what do you think the truth buys you now? He stepped closer. Maybe a chance to stop running. Rain pattered harder against the windows. Maeve's eyes glistened in the lamplight. She wanted to stay angry, but something in his voice, quiet, raw, stripped of pride, cracked the armor she'd built. You still think I should have let them take you? She asked. No, he said. Now I think maybe I should have stayed sooner. For a long moment, they stood close enough to feel each other's breath, the air between them thick with rain, and everything unsaid. Then Maeve whispered, You shouldn't be here. Neither should you, he said gently. But we are. Outside, lightning flashed, turning the room silver and gold. She could see the truth in his face, the ruin, the remorse, and the kind of tenderness that only grows in broken ground. Maeve's voice softened. So what happens now, Elias Hart? He looked at her hand, resting on the bar near his. Now I try to make peace with the things I've burned. Even me? She asked. He smiled, barely. Especially you. The rain fell harder. The lamps flickered. Somewhere deep inside her, something long frozen began to thaw. If this story has stirred a little warmth beneath your own storm, don't leave the fire yet. The night's just beginning to tell what the heart can't hide. The storm did not ease that night. It stayed, crawling across the desert like a wounded animal. Rain slid down the windows of the saloon in long, trembling streaks. The lamps burned low, their glow soft as breath. Maeve sat alone at a table near the back, hands around a cooling cup of coffee she didn't remember pouring. The place was empty. No piano, no laughter, just the faint hum of thunder and the slow, steady beating of her own heart. Elias Hart stood by the fire, sleeves rolled to the elbows, steam rising from his soaked shirt. His hat hung on the peg behind him. Without the coat and the weight of the outlaw name, he looked younger. Still dangerous, but in a way that made her chest ache instead of her stomach twist. You always this quiet? She asked. He looked over his shoulder. Only when words don't fix anything. She gave a dry laugh. Then you'll fit right in around here. He turned back to the flames. I was 19 when I left home. Thought the world had something better waiting. It didn't. Maeve leaned back, studying him. It never does. It just teaches you to stop asking. He looked at her then, really looked. What did it teach you, Maeve Calder? She hesitated. That love doesn't save anyone. It just makes the losing hurt more. The fire popped. Neither spoke for a long time. Outside, the rain softened, turning to mist. Finally, Elias said, You still keep that spur? She reached into her pocket, pulled it out, and set it on the table between them. Couldn't seem to throw it away. He stepped closer, his boots soundless on the worn floor. You know what that spur was for? I figure it used to drive something forward. He smiled, small and sad. Yeah, a reminder that motion's the only thing that keeps a man from dying where he stands. She traced the curve of the metal with one finger. And you? You still running? His gaze dropped to her hand. Not tonight. Her heart gave a traitorous flutter. Then what are you doing? Standing still, for once. The room grew smaller around them. Or maybe it just felt that way. The fire painted him in gold and shadow. Maeve could see every scar, every line that told a story she wasn't sure she wanted to hear, but she wanted to know the man behind them. He sat across from her. The air between them felt thick, full of words neither dared say. "You ever think about leaving?" he asked. "Every day," she said. "But I never go." "Why not?" She looked down at her hands. "Because the road out there doesn't forgive either. At least here, I know what kind of hurt's waiting." He nodded slowly, like he understood that better than he wanted to admit. Then he reached across the table. Not fast, not bold, slow enough to give her time to stop him. She didn't. His fingers brushed the back of her hand, warm and rough, the touch of a man who'd worked and bled for every piece of tenderness he had left. Maeve froze. The air left her lungs in a single breath. He spoke softly. "You keep shaking every time I get close." "Maybe it's the cold," she whispered. "It's not." She wanted to pull away, but his hand stayed there, steady, quiet, waiting. No demand, just presence. "Don't," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. "Don't what?" "Don't make me feel something I can't afford to." Elias leaned forward slightly. The firelight caught in his eyes, turning them to molten amber. "Maybe it's not about what you can afford. Maybe it's about what you deserve." She swallowed hard. "You talk like a man who's forgotten what people like us deserve." He gave a ghost of a smile. "Then remind me." Her breath hitched. The storm outside cracked again, a flash of lightning lighting the room for half a heartbeat. She could see his face clearly then, the sorrow, the want, the truth that he'd tried to bury under new names and worn boots. She stood abruptly, the chair legs scraping the floor. "I can't do this." He rose too, but didn't follow. "I'm not asking you to." "Then stop looking at me like that." "Like what?" "Like I'm something you could fix." Elias's voice softened. "You're not broken, Maeve. You're just tired of carrying what wasn't yours." She turned away, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. "You talk too much for a quiet man." He let out a small laugh, low, sad, genuine. "You think too much for a woman who deserves peace." The words hit deeper than they should have. She pressed a hand to her chest. "You don't even know me." "Maybe I don't have to," he said. "Some things a man just recognizes." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy, like the earth after rain, full of life that hadn't yet decided to grow. Maeve finally turned to face him again. The firelight danced between them, soft and gold. "Tomorrow," she said, "the sheriff will come back. He'll want to know where you'll go." "I don't know yet," Elias said. "Maybe somewhere east, maybe nowhere." She nodded. "Then tonight's all we have." He took a slow breath, eyes on hers. "Then let's not waste it." She didn't move closer, but she didn't step back either. Her voice came out a whisper. "Careful, Elias Hart. I've buried better men than you." He smiled faintly. "Then I'll try to live long enough to be worse." The lamp flickered once, casting their shadows together on the wall. Two broken outlines finding shape in the same light. If this story has touched something quiet inside you, don't let the flame die yet. The fire's just beginning to remember what warmth feels like. The night stretched slow, thick with silence, and the soft hiss of rain dying in the dust. Maeve didn't light another lamp. She didn't need to. The glow from the hearth painted the saloon in amber, turning every bottle and glass into little fires of their own. Elias Hart sat near the doorway, boots off, his shoulders slack. He looked almost peaceful, but there was a kind of stillness in him that wasn't rest. It was control. The kind men learn after too many close calls. Maeve poured herself a drink, though her hand trembled when she lifted the bottle. "Whiskey helps," she said quietly. "At least it lies better than hope." Elias looked up at her. "Hope's never lied to me. I just stopped asking it questions." She smirked. "You talk like someone who still believes in second chances." "I don't believe in them," he said, "but I don't turn 'em away when they come knocking." Their eyes met across the dim room. That silence, heavy, charged, returned, same as it always did when neither of them knew what to do with the air between them. Maeve finally walked over and sat opposite him. "Tell me something true," she said. He studied her for a beat. "Something true, huh?" "Yes. Something that's yours. Not what the world says about you." Elias leaned forward, elbows on his knees. His voice dropped, low and raw. "Truth is, I used to think love was a weakness. Then I learned it's just the thing that breaks a man slow enough to make him feel it." Maeve swallowed hard. "And now?" He looked into the fire. "Now I think maybe love's just the last thing a man's willing to carry when everything else falls." Her chest tightened. There was pain in that sentence. Not loud pain, but quiet, lived in. The kind she understood. Her turn. "You want my truth?" she asked softly. He nodded once. She took a breath. "I don't dream anymore. Used to. But dreams turn cruel when they show you what you've lost." He watched her, the flicker of flame in his eyes. "What did you lose, Maeve?" "Someone who promised to come back." She smiled, but it was the kind that never reached her eyes. "Turns out promises don't travel well in this land." He didn't offer pity. He just said, "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she replied. "The desert keeps what it wants. We just walk through it, pretending we've got a say." He leaned back in his chair, silent for a long time. The fire crackled. Outside, thunder grumbled far off, a reminder that storms never end, they just move on. Then Elias spoke again. "If you could leave tomorrow, where would you go?" Maeve smiled faintly. "Anywhere the wind forgets my name." "That's a hard place to find." "Then maybe I'll just stay here," she said. "At least the ghosts know me." He nodded, as if that made perfect sense. They stayed that way a while, two souls too weary to pretend they weren't drawn to each other. Every movement, every glance was a question neither dared to ask out loud. Finally, Elias stood. "I'll check the horses," he said, though his voice carried something else beneath it. Maeve rose too. "You can wait till morning." "Can't," he said. "Storm loosened the fence. I heard it creak." She hesitated. "Then I'll go with you." He looked at her, a half smile playing on his lips. "You don't trust me alone." "I don't trust the night," she said. They stepped out together. The air was cool now, washed clean by the storm. The smell of wet earth and wood smoke clung to everything. The moon hung low, pale and watchful, caught between clouds that refused to leave. The corral sat behind the saloon, fence bent from years of weather. The horses shifted, restless, tails flicking water into the air. Elias moved to fix the loose rail, muscles flexing under his damp shirt. Maeve tried not to look, failed anyway. "You don't seem like a man who runs from things," she said. "I run from what I can't fight," he answered, not looking at her. "That used to be the law. Now it's feelings." Her laugh was soft. "You're terrible at hiding either." He paused, glancing at her. "And you hide everything, even when you're burning." Maeve felt her heart stutter. "You don't know me that well." "I know the look of someone trying not to want something," he said. She stepped closer. "And what is it I want, Elias?" His eyes found hers, steady, unflinching. "Me." The word hung in the air, dangerous and real. For a heartbeat, she didn't breathe. The world seemed to tilt, the night folding tighter around them. Then she whispered, "You shouldn't say things you can't take back." "Then I'll mean them," he said simply. The space between them vanished. Rain dripped from the eaves, cold against the heat, rising off their skin. Maeve's breath caught as he reached up, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. His fingers lingered near her cheek, rough and trembling with restraint. She didn't pull away this time. "I should hate you," she murmured. "Maybe you do." Her lips parted, and for the first time in years, she didn't think. She just felt. The world was all heartbeat and thunder, firelight and rain. When he kissed her, it wasn't gentle. It was desperate, like a man who'd finally stopped running, like a woman who'd forgotten how to breathe without him. The fence creaked, the horses stirred, the wind sighed through the dust. When they broke apart, both were shaking. Maeve looked at him, breathless. "This changes nothing." Elias's hand brushed her jaw. "Then let it change everything." She turned away before he could say more, her pulse wild, her thoughts louder than the storm. But even as she walked back toward the saloon, she knew something inside her had already shifted. A wound opening not from pain, but from the sudden, terrifying possibility of healing. If this story has warmed a quiet corner of your heart, don't let the fire fade. The dawn hasn't come yet, and neither has the reckoning. The dawn came slow and smoky, crawling over the horizon like it wasn't sure it belonged there. The rain had stopped, but the world still smelled of thunder. Maeve stood on the porch of the saloon, arms folded, watching the sky lighten over the desert. Her hair was still damp, her lips still tingling from a kiss she swore she didn't want to remember. Behind her, the door creaked. Elias stepped out, boots in hand, shirt unbuttoned at the throat. The early light caught the scar across his collarbone, pale against tanned skin. He didn't say a word at first, just leaned against the post beside her, quiet as the morning. "You don't look like a man who slept," she said softly. "I didn't," he answered. "Did you?" Maeve gave a dry laugh. "Not even close." They stood in silence for a long while, the kind of silence that carries every word neither dared to say. The desert stretched before them, vast, empty, endless, and yet somehow it felt smaller than the space between their hearts. Finally, Elias spoke. "You regret it." She didn't answer right away. "You mean last night?" He nodded. Maeve took a deep breath, the air sharp with dust and memory. "No," she said. I just don't know what to do with it. Elias's eyes softened. You don't have to do anything. You just have to feel it. She turned toward him, a flicker of something fierce in her gaze. Feelings don't keep a roof over your head, Elias. They just set fire to it. He smiled faintly. Then maybe it needed burning. She shook her head and looked away, pretending the sunrise interested her more than his voice did. You talk like a man who's got nothing left to lose. I've got something now, he said quietly. She froze. The words landed heavy, too honest, too close. Don't, she warned. Don't make this harder than it already is. But before either of them could say more, hoofbeats broke the stillness. Fast. Urgent. Maeve turned. A rider came tearing down the main road, dust rising behind like smoke from a fire that wouldn't die. The horse stopped hard in front of the saloon, nostrils flaring. It was the sheriff's deputy, Tom Varner, a boy too young to wear the look he carried now. Maeve, Elias, you need to come, he gasped, sliding off the saddle. Kellen's been shot. Ambush. 2 miles out. He's alive, but he's asking for you. Maeve's stomach dropped. What? Tom nodded, breathless. He said your name, both of you. Said to hurry. Elias didn't move for a moment. Then he grabbed his coat and hat from the rail. Let's go. Maeve caught his arm. If this is a trap, he met her eyes. Then we'll walk into it together. She hesitated only a heartbeat before nodding. Give me a minute to saddle my mare. They rode out side by side, the wind whipping their hair, the road still wet from rain. The land glistened under a weak sun, gold, red, and endless. Maeve could feel her pulse in every stride of her horse. As they neared the ridge, they saw the wagon first. Broken wheel, blood on the dirt. The sheriff lay beside it, pale but breathing, his hand pressed to his side. Maeve slid from the saddle and dropped to her knees beside him. Kellen! His eyes opened, glassy with pain. Maeve! Creed! No, Hart! He rasped. Doesn't matter. They came for both of you. Who did? Elias demanded. Kellen coughed, blood on his lips. The gang from Dry Needle. They think you talked. Think she's hiding the money. Maeve's heart pounded. What money? The bank robbery, Kellen gasped. The one you didn't do, Hart. They think you kept the cut. Elias's jaw tightened. I didn't take a damn cent. Doesn't matter what's true anymore, Kellen said. They're coming for you. For her. You have to... He stopped, breathing ragged. You have to run. Maeve pressed her hands over his wound, tears stinging her eyes. No, you're coming back with us. We'll get you help. But Kellen shook his head weakly. No time. Go. Elias grabbed Maeve's arm, pulling her to her feet. He's right. She looked back at the sheriff. He'll die if we leave. And so will we if we stay, Elias said. The wind shifted, carrying the faint echo of horses. More than a few. The gang was close. Maeve's breath caught. They'll burn the town. Elias's eyes hardened. Then we make our stand before they do. He mounted up, pulling her up behind him. Hold on, he said. They rode hard, dust kicking up behind them, the desert stretching out like a furnace ahead. Maeve pressed close, her arms tight around him. She could feel his heart through his shirt, steady, relentless, alive. As they crossed the ridge, she looked back. Smoke already rose in the distance, dark, curling, hungry. She whispered, "It's starting again." Elias's voice came low. "Not this time." They rode toward the canyon, where the land narrowed to a throat of rock and silence. A place made for last chances. The sun dropped lower. Shadows lengthened. Maeve's pulse matched the rhythm of the horse's stride. Every breath, every sound felt like the world holding itself before the fall. When they finally stopped, she slid down first, legs trembling. Elias followed, scanning the horizon. "They'll be here by nightfall," he said. Maeve looked at him, the firelight in his eyes replaced by something sharper, resolve. "You plan to fight them?" "I plan to survive," he said. "And so do you." She stepped closer, her voice breaking. "And if we don't?" He reached out, brushing her cheek with his thumb, soft, slow. "Then I die beside someone worth dying for." The words stole her breath. The fear in her chest turned to heat, deep and wild. "You shouldn't say things like that," she whispered. "I mean them," he said again, the same way he had the night before. For a moment she let her forehead rest against his. The world went still, just wind, dust, and two hearts that refused to quit. "If this story has pulled you into its storm," the voice of the fire might have said, "don't turn back yet. The fight for love and mercy in the western dust has only just begun." The canyon swallowed the light as dusk bled across the desert. Shadows stretched long, folding into one another until the world turned to gold, then red, then the color of ash. Maeve and Elias made camp near the rocks, where the land narrowed to a single pass. The fire they built was small, careful, just enough to keep the chill away, not enough to draw eyes. Elias crouched beside the flames, his face lit in flickers. "They'll come from the east," he said. 2, maybe 3 hours. Maeve sat nearby, arms wrapped around her knees. "How many?" "Half a dozen, maybe more." She swallowed. "And it's just us." He nodded. "For now." The silence that followed was heavy but not hopeless, the kind of quiet that happens when people have already made peace with the storm. Maeve watched the way the firelight danced on his face. He looked like every story she'd ever heard about men who burned too bright to last. The lines near his mouth deepened when he thought, and his eyes carried that faraway focus of someone who'd seen too much to waste time on fear. "You've done this before," she said quietly. "Too many times." "Why do it again?" He looked at her then, really looked. "Because I'm tired of running." "And because you were kind when you didn't have to be." Maeve shook her head, a bitter smile tugging at her lips. "Kindness is just another way of getting hurt." Elias's voice softened. "Then maybe it's worth the hurt." The wind shifted, carrying the faint cry of a hawk overhead. Maeve stood and walked toward the edge of the canyon, staring out over the desert. The land glowed faintly under the coming moon, vast, endless, indifferent. "Do you ever think," she asked, "that the West just eats people alive and calls it fate?" Elias joined her, boots crunching over dry stone. "Maybe, but maybe it just shows us what we already were." She turned toward him, eyes dark in the half-light. "And what are we?" He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Two people still standing." Maeve's throat tightened. She wanted to pull away. She didn't. You make it sound like that's something holy. He smiled faintly. Maybe it is. For a moment the wind died. The world went still enough to hear the whisper of her breath, the steady beat of his heart under the silence. She reached up, fingertips tracing the line of his jaw. "If they come for you," she said, "I won't let them take you alive." Elias caught her hand, held it against his chest. "Then I'll make sure they never touch you." The words settled between them, an oath, quiet and unspoken, binding as blood. The first sound of hooves came just as the sun slipped below the ridge, distant but closing fast. Maeve felt her stomach twist. "They're early." Elias's eyes narrowed. "They're eager." He moved quickly, checked the rifle, counted the bullets. "Take cover by the rocks. Stay low." "I can shoot," she said. "I know," he answered. "But don't unless you have to." She knelt behind a boulder, her hands steady despite the pounding of her heart. The fire was nearly out now, leaving only a thin coil of smoke. The world was painted in silver and shadow. The riders appeared soon after, 6 of them, dark silhouettes against the rising moon. Their voices echoed down the canyon, rough, hungry. Maeve felt the old fear crawl up her spine, but she pushed it down. She thought of every night she'd survived alone, every man who'd called her fragile, and lived to regret it. Elias raised his rifle, resting it against the stone. His breath slowed. "Wait," he murmured. They came closer, too close. Then one of the riders shouted, "We know you're there, Creed. Come out and maybe we'll let the woman live." Maeve flinched. Elias didn't. "They know my name again," he said quietly. "How?" "Doesn't matter now." He stepped from behind the rock, slow, deliberate. The moonlight painted him silver, every scar and line on his face carved sharp. "This is your only warning," he called. "Turn around, and I'll forget you ever rode this way." Laughter answered him. "You ain't in charge anymore, Hart. You're a dead man wearing someone else's name." Elias's voice dropped to a whisper. "Then I'll die as myself." The first shot cracked the silence apart. Stone shattered beside Maeve's head. She ducked, heart hammering. Elias fired back. One shot, clean and precise. A rider fell. The others scattered for cover. Gunfire echoed in the canyon, flashing like lightning in the dark. Maeve grabbed the pistol from her belt, firing toward the noise. The recoil burned her palms, but she didn't stop. She wasn't the woman who'd hidden behind bar counters anymore. Then, a scream. A man went down. Another turned back. Elias shouted, "Two left!" Maeve reloaded, breath ragged. The gunmetal was slick in her grip. She saw movement to the right, a shadow breaking from cover. Without thinking, she fired. The man hit the ground hard. Then silence. Just the wind, the echo fading. Maeve rose slowly, gun still raised. "Is it over?" Elias scanned the ridge, breathing hard. "For now." She stepped toward him. His sleeve was torn, blood dark against his arm. "You're hit." "Just a graze." He sank to one knee, exhaustion catching up to him. Maeve dropped beside him, pressing her hand to the wound anyway. "You said you'd survive," she whispered. "I'm trying," he said, voice weak but steady. Her hand trembled, pressing harder. You don't get to leave me now. He met her eyes. I wasn't planning to. Their faces were close, too close. The air smelled of smoke and iron and rain long gone. Maeve, he breathed. She leaned in, her forehead resting against his. The war outside them had gone quiet, but inside her chest the fire still burned. If you die, she whispered, I'll follow you into the dust. He smiled faintly. Then I guess I'd better keep breathing. Above them, the stars broke through the clouds, sharp and endless. The desert exhaled. For the first time, it felt like the world was listening. If this story has found your heartbeat in its dust and fire, don't look away yet. The storm's not over, and neither is what they've begun to feel. The night never truly ended. It only thinned, turning from black to blue as dawn crept over the canyon. The wind was still cold enough to bite. Maeve's hands were raw from tending Elias's wound, her fingers stained dark with dried blood and dust. He sat propped against a rock, pale but conscious, a strip of her torn petticoat tied around his arm. The fire between them was little more than smoke now, curling toward the sky like a tired prayer. You should have slept, he said, his voice low, rough from pain. I did, she lied. He gave her a look that saw straight through the words. You keep watch like a soldier. Somebody had to, she murmured. You looked half dead. Half's better than all, he said, managing a crooked grin. It pulled a laugh from her, the kind she hadn't made in years, small, broken, but real. You talk like a man who's seen too much to be afraid anymore. Elias's eyes softened. No, I'm scared every damn day. The trick is not letting it decide who you are. Maeve nodded, staring at the fire. You really think we survived last night by choice? He shifted, wincing. No, we survived 'cause you were there. She froze, unsure what to do with the weight of that. You'd have done the same. Maybe, he said, but I wouldn't have done it half as brave. Her throat tightened. She looked away, blinking against the dawn light. For a long time, neither spoke. The wind carried the smell of sage and gunpowder. The desert was quiet, too quiet. Then, faintly, came the sound of a distant engine, not a train, a wagon, wheels cutting through the dirt. Maeve stiffened. More of them. Elias strained to listen. No, lighter load. One horse. Maybe two. They both waited until a shape appeared over the ridge, a small supply wagon driven by none other than Tom Varner, the sheriff's deputy. The boy's hat sat crooked on his head, his face pale and anxious. He pulled the horse to a stop and climbed down. You're both alive. Barely, Maeve said, standing. What about the town? Tom shook his head. Smoke everywhere. They came through after you left. Burned the jail. Kellen's. He didn't make it. Maeve closed her eyes. For a moment, the world tilted. He saved us, she whispered. Elias bowed his head, jaw tight. He didn't deserve that end. No one does, she said softly. Tom looked between them, his young face carved with worry. They're still looking for you, Mr. Hart. Said you've got something that ain't yours. Elias frowned. They won't stop. Maeve stepped forward. Then neither will we. Tom blinked. What do you mean? She glanced at Elias. You said you're tired of running. Maybe it's time to stop hiding and end this. Elias studied her, the way her chin lifted, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. You sure about that? I'm sure of one thing, she said. I'm done letting the West take what's mine. The boy looked lost between them. Then what do you want me to do? Go back, Elias said. Tell whoever's left that Maeve Calder and Elias Hart are ghosts now. Let 'em chase shadows. Tom hesitated. You'll just disappear? Elias smiled faintly. For a while. The boy nodded and climbed back onto the wagon, his face still unsure. If you're ghosts, he said, you'd better haunt 'em good. When he was gone, the canyon went quiet again. The sun had fully broken the horizon now, lighting the cliffs in red and gold. Maeve turned to Elias. He's right, you know. About what? You and me. We're ghosts now. Just not the kind that vanish easy. He pushed himself to his feet, slow but steady. Then what do ghosts do, Maeve Calder? She stepped closer, the wind tugging at her hair. They make the living remember. Their eyes met. The desert shimmered between them, alive with heat and silence. Elias reached for her hand. There's a cabin near the rim, 10 miles west. My old hideout. Supplies, water, horses. We can rest there. Plan what's next. She hesitated. You really think we'll make it that far? I've made it farther on less hope, he said. Maeve nodded. Then let's ride before the sun gets cruel. They saddled the horses in silence. The sky had turned blinding white by the time they started west. Dust rose behind them like ghosts chasing ghosts. Hours passed. The land flattened, heat waves bending the horizon. Maeve's body ached, but she didn't complain. The farther they rode, the quieter her thoughts became. When they reached the cabin, the sun was falling again. A small wooden structure, half swallowed by sagebrush, sat tucked into a hill of stone. Elias dismounted first, moving slower than usual. His wound had reopened, blood soaked through the bandage. Sit down, Maeve ordered, catching his arm. I'm fine, he lied. You're stubborn, she snapped. He grinned, teeth white in the fading light. Same thing. She pushed him onto a crate, tore the bandage loose, and cleaned the cut with whiskey. He hissed between his teeth, but didn't pull away. Next time, she muttered, try not to get shot. Next time, he said, voice low, try not to make me want to live this much. Her hands froze. She looked up, meeting his gaze. The air between them grew hot, thick, alive. He reached out, catching her wrist gently. You don't have to be afraid of wanting something good, he whispered. Maeve's breath trembled. Good things don't last here. Then we'll make this one last, he said. She didn't think. She didn't speak. She leaned in, and his lips met hers, slow, deep, the kind of kiss that felt like a promise whispered to the firelight. When it broke, she stayed there, forehead against his. You make me forget how much I've lost. He smiled, faint and tired. Maybe that's what healing feels like. Outside, the wind howled through the canyon, carrying the scent of dust and pine. The fire inside the cabin flickered, its glow wrapping around them like an old prayer. If this story has reached the quiet corners of your heart, don't look away. The fire burns low, but its heat has one more secret to tell. Night fell hard and clean over the desert. The cabin's roof creaked under the wind, and the fire in the hearth burned low, throwing restless shadows along the walls. Maeve lay half awake, her head resting on Elias's shoulder. His breathing was slow, heavy, the kind of rhythm that meant pain and peace were trading turns. For the first time in years, she wasn't cold. For the first time in years, she felt something close to safe, but safety in the West was just a story people told themselves before dawn. Elias stirred. "You awake?" Maeve didn't move. "Barely." He turned his head slightly toward her. "You've got that look again." "What look?" "The one that means you're thinking of leaving before the sun comes up." She smiled against his chest, a sad, small thing. "You think too much for a man who's bleeding." He chuckled softly, then coughed. "Hurts less when you're here." She lifted her head, studying his face. The cut across his cheek had scabbed over, and his eyes, though tired, still carried that steady fire. "You're impossible." "I've been called worse." Maeve shifted up, sitting on the edge of the bed. The night pressed against the windows, thick and waiting. "You know they won't stop, Elias. The men from Dry Needle. The ones who burned the town. They'll track us." "I know." "Then we can't stay here." Elias pushed himself upright, grimacing through the pain. "I wasn't planning to." She turned to him, eyes searching. "Where will you go?" He hesitated. "North, maybe. Toward the mines. Hard country, but easy to disappear." "And me?" He met her gaze. "You don't owe me your running." Her laugh came sharp and broken. "Don't you dare give me back my freedom now." Elias blinked, surprised. Maeve stood, crossing to the table where her pistol lay beside the lantern. "I chose to stay. I choose what comes next." He watched her, something fierce rising in his eyes. "You always do." Before either of them could speak again, a sound cut through the wind, faint, distant, unmistakable. Hooves. Maeve froze. Elias reached for his gun. "They found us." She doused the lantern with a quick breath, plunging the cabin into near darkness. The fire still glowed, low and red, enough to paint them in ghostlight. "How many?" she whispered. He listened, jaw tight. 4, maybe 5. She moved to the window, peering through the cracks in the shutters. Figures in the dark, torches flickering, the glow of revenge moving through the canyon. Her voice was calm. "They mean to finish what they started." Elias loaded the rifle. "Then we finish it first." The riders drew closer, voices carrying through the wind. "She's with him!" one shouted. "The saloon woman! Bring her out alive! The man dies slow." Maeve's blood turned to ice. "They want me!" Elias's tone hardened. "They won't touch you." "You can't fight all of them," she said. "Watch me." He stepped toward the door, but she caught his arm. "If you go out there, they'll kill you." He turned to her, his face calm, almost gentle. "Then maybe they'll look at you long enough for me to kill them first." Maeve's throat ached. "You think that's worth dying for?" Elias's hand found hers. "No," he said softly. "I think it's worth living for." The words broke something open inside her. The years of silence, of fear, of surviving without reason. They all came rushing back in one hot tear she didn't mean to let fall. She kissed him, hard, desperate, the kind of kiss that said everything words couldn't. "I'm scared. I'm sorry. Don't you dare leave me like the rest." When she pulled back, he touched her cheek. "When this is over," he whispered, "ride north. Find the old trail past the Black Hills. There's a cabin there with my mother's name carved on the door. If I don't make it, you'll know I meant it." She shook her head fiercely. "Don't talk like that." But it was too late. The horses were at the door now, boots hitting the ground, the gang spreading out through the brush. Elias took one last breath, raised his rifle, and nodded to her. "Stay low. Wait for my signal." Maeve crouched by the window, heart slamming against her ribs. She could hear them moving closer, the scrape of leather, the whisper of guns being drawn. Then Elias kicked the door open. One clean motion. Fire erupted from the rifle. A man went down before his scream hit the air. "Get him!" someone shouted. Bullets tore through the cabin wall. Maeve ducked, splinters flying past her face. She grabbed her pistol, leaned out the window, and fired twice. Another rider fell. Elias moved like a ghost through the doorway, reloading without panic, his focus sharp, steady. The gunfire lit the canyon in bursts of white and flame. 3 left, then 2. Maeve heard a cry. Elias hit the dirt hard, his leg caught by a stray bullet. "Elias!" she screamed, running out into the open. The last man turned his gun toward her. His smile was rotten, teeth gold in the torchlight. "Pretty thing, like you should have stayed home." The shot never came. Elias, bleeding and shaking, raised his rifle one last time and fired. The man dropped, torch tumbling into the sand. Silence. Smoke. The smell of gunpowder and blood and wet dust. Maeve fell to her knees beside him, grabbing his face in her hands. "Stay with me, please." He tried to smile, but it came out as a grimace. "You okay?" She nodded, tears cutting through the dirt on her cheeks. "You saved me." His voice was a whisper now. "You saved me first." She pressed her forehead to his. The world spun around them. The fire, the wind, the stars. Everything fading but the warmth of his breath against her skin. "I won't let you go," she said. "You already did," he breathed. "Back when you looked at me like I was worth something again." Her heart broke clean and silent. The torches burned low. The desert exhaled. Maeve's hands stayed on his face, her tears falling onto his lips. "Don't you die on me, Elias Hart. Not after everything." His hand found hers, fingers trembling, but still strong enough to squeeze. "If I do," he coughed, his words fading. "You keep riding, Maeve. Don't stop till the wind knows your name again." Then his eyes fluttered shut. Maeve froze, breath caught somewhere between a sob and a prayer. The fire crackled, the stars above flickered against the dawn, and the desert went quiet as a grave. She pressed her face into his neck, her whisper lost to the wind. "No, not this time. You don't get to leave me like the rest." But the only answer was silence, and the slow rise of the sun. If this story has carried your heart into the stillness of that dawn, stay close. There's one more truth waiting beneath the dust. the kind that doesn't end in goodbye. The sun rose without mercy, spilling gold over the canyon and turning every pool of blood to rust. Maeve didn't move at first. She sat beside Elias, her body wrapped around his, the desert stretching endless in every direction. The wind had gone still. Even the horses waited, their ears flicking toward her as if they understood something sacred was breaking in that silence. She whispered his name once, twice, soft, trembling. "Elias, Elias, please." For a long while there was nothing. Then, barely, a sound, a breath. Maeve froze. His chest lifted, shallow but real. "Elias." His eyes flickered open, unfocused, then found her face. "Still here?" he murmured, voice a rasp of wind and grit. Relief broke through her like lightning. She pressed her hand to his cheek, laughing through tears. "You fool! I thought I'd lost you." He smiled faintly. "You almost did." "Can you move?" she asked. "Not yet. But I'll live long enough to try." Maeve looked around the canyon. The bodies, the burned torches, the shattered rifle. The air still smelled of gunpowder and smoke. She pulled her scarf loose and tied it tight around his leg again. "We have to get you to water. There's a spring east of here, near the old ridge." "You think you can ride?" He nodded once. "If you promise to stop looking at me like that." "Like what?" "Like you're already burying me." Her throat closed. "Don't joke about that." He touched her hand. "Rough, warm, alive. I'm not." It took everything she had to get him on the horse. His weight leaned heavy against her, his breath brushing her ear as she guided the reins. The trail east wound through stone and silence, and with every step she whispered his name under her breath like a prayer the land might listen to. Hours later, they reached the ridge. The spring lay beneath a cluster of cottonwoods, their leaves whispering in the dry breeze. Maeve helped him down, half carrying him to the water's edge. He drank, slow and shaking, then looked up at her. "You saved me again. Don't make a habit of it," she said softly. They sat together beneath the trees, the world finally quiet. The wind carried the scent of sage and rain from somewhere far off. Elias's head leaned back against the rock. "You ever wonder if the West remembers the ones it breaks?" Maeve smiled faintly. "Maybe that's all it remembers." He turned to her, eyes soft in the fading light. "Then maybe we'll haunt it kindly." She laughed through the ache. "You think we're ghosts?" "Maybe, maybe not. But if we are, I'd rather haunt it with you." She reached for his hand, fingers lacing with his. "You talk like a man who thinks he gets to choose." He smiled. "Maybe this time I do." The sun dipped lower, painting the canyon in amber and rose. The long shadows made everything look softer, even the scars on their faces, even the blood that wouldn't quite wash away. Maeve rested her head against his shoulder. "When I first saw you, I thought you'd ruin me." "I probably did," he said. She smiled. "No. You just reminded me what it felt like to be alive." Elias exhaled slowly. "And you reminded me what it means to stop running." The air grew cooler. A coyote called somewhere far away. For the first time in years, Maeve didn't flinch at the sound. Elias reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small, a rusted spur, the same one he'd once left in her hand. He turned it over in his palm, then placed it between them. "I think it's yours now," he said. She looked down at it, the metal glinting faintly in the firelight. "What am I supposed to do with it?" "Keep moving," he said, "but this time towards something." Maeve's chest tightened. "You think there's something left for people like us?" Elias leaned closer, his voice barely a whisper. "There's always something left when the dust settles, if you're brave enough to stay and see it." She kissed him then, not out of fear or desperation, but out of quiet certainty. It was slow, deep, steady, a promise, not a plea. When she pulled back, the first stars had come out. The wind had softened, warm now instead of cruel. "Rest," she said, her voice gentler than she knew it could be. "We'll ride north when the night cools. You'll see your mother's name carved on that door again." Elias smiled, eyes half closed. "Only if you're there to knock first." She brushed a hand through his hair, leaned her forehead against his, and whispered, "I'll be there." For a while, neither spoke. The desert around them glowed silver under the moon. The fire crackled low, sending sparks toward the sky, small lights rising to join the stars. Maeve closed her eyes, listening to the rhythm of his breath, the heartbeat of the west itself, steady, patient, eternal. She thought of every soul this land had taken and every one it had given back. Maybe that was what the frontier really was. Not a place, but a test. To love something wild enough to forgive it, and to forgive yourself for surviving it. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely more than wind. "The hate burned out a long time ago," she said. "All that's left is the heat." Elias smiled in the dark. "Then let's build something from it." And under that wide, merciless sky they did. Two broken hearts, mended by firelight, by courage, by the long road still waiting beyond the horizon. The west would remember their dust. But the wind would carry their love farther than any gunshot or grave. If this story has touched a tender place in your heart, let your light stay with us. Like, share, and subscribe so this western fire keeps burning for you. Until the next ride, partner, keep the dust in your boots and the warmth in your soul.